Hi, my name's Kim. I'm a licensed and nationally certified Chinese medical provider and a Taoist practitioner. Today, I want to talk a little bit about our navel chakra and just some thoughts that were coming to my head as I was working with my own chakras. I was sitting down the other day getting ready to meditate, and so being that I had been working all week, one of the things I like to do is to clear out all my chakras. And so I'm clearing out my chakras, and I notice that my navel chakra is completely plugged up. And so you're probably wondering, what does the navel chakra do? Well, first off, it's located where your navel is. So that's why it's called the navel chakra. But what it does is it helps us with assimilation. So it helps us assimilate foods. It helps us assimilate emotions. And I grew up in a farming community. So in a farming community, there's a saying, separate the wheat from the chaff. So it helps you separate things. It helps you separate what's valuable, the wheat, from the chaff, what's not valuable. Now, as I'm cleaning out this chakra, my thoughts start to wander. I've been watching Ancient Aliens lately, and I don't know how many of you watch that show, but one of the things we learn watching that show is that the aliens, when they communicate to us, they communicate to us through telepathy. So they communicate like this. Not like this, where, we're talking face to face and we hear words. Nope. They communicate through the mind. And, I was thinking about that. I'm like, I think we can all do that. And you're probably thinking, what craziness is that, right? Where is that craziness coming from? Well, let me tell you why I started thinking this, okay? I think we've been trained not to use our intuition, not to use our instinct, and not to read the room. And those are all nonverbal skill sets, right? They are nonverbal methods of communicating. And, I think those would be the precursors or the initial steps to learning how to use telepathy if we were going to do that, right? So what do I mean, right? Well, think about when we learned how to read. It took us a minimum of 13, 14 years of our lives to become a proficient reader so that we could go on to become an expert reader. And if I look at that, when we learned how to read, first we had to learn the alphabet. We had to learn all those letters in the alphabet. And then we had to learn the sounds that they made. And then we had to learn how to write the letters. And then we had to learn how letters combine. And when they combined, then we could start seeing words. And we start out with 2, 3-letter words, sometimes 4. See, Jack, run. And after that, we continue to progress. And by the time we're in 8th grade, we are a proficient reader. We have enough skill sets that we can continue on to become an expert reader in something, whether it's literature, whether it's science, whether it's math. We have enough skill sets that now we can continue on to become an expert. In Chinese medicine, there's a belief that our life experiences can create disease in the body, especially the emotions that come up from those life experiences. And our life experiences could be trauma. Sometimes it's gaslighting. Sometimes it's support. Sometimes it's love. But all these different experiences create emotions in our body. And it's the negative emotions that we're most concerned with because those emotions actually create stress in our life, whereas the positive emotions help our body heal. So think about fear. We can actually feel fear in our body, right? We can feel our heartbeat quicken. We can feel our body start to sweat, our muscles tense. What about if you're in a situation where you can't express what you're feeling? Whatever, the people you're around are not going to let you express your feelings. What might you do then? You might stuff your emotions, and you can actually feel the pressure and tension it takes to do that. Or you might binge eat. There are many different ways we can express our emotions through our digestion. Now, 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 think about all the digestive issues there are. Think about things like the simple ones like abdominal bloating or gas. What about that swelling or that weight gain people get around the abdomen before they get diabetes, or hernias, hiatal hernias? What about some of the more serious ones like Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis? Those are all digestive issues that focus around the navel chakra. And if there's anything true about Chinese medicine, then what they're saying is that our emotions, our life experiences have been training us to ignore our nonverbal communication for our whole life. And part of the way they do that is by encouraging you and me to buy into the marketing. You're probably going, buy into the marketing? Yeah, buy into the marketing. We've created this whole reality. Our whole educational and scientific reality is focused on what we can touch, we can weigh, what we can feel. And all that non-verbal, that non-physical stuff becomes really confusing. Our educational system has gone on for decades, drilling into our heads that the only thing that's real is what you can measure with a yardstick. And if you come out with an answer that's based on your intuition or what you feel, you are going to be reprimanded. You're going to be told that that's not true and that is not a valid way of coming up with an answer. Let's think about math for a minute. To become an expert at math, you can go to school and you can become an expert. You can get your PhD in math and you can study math for a lifetime. You might be saying, I'm not really good at math. I don't see myself studying math for a lifetime. Well, I don't think it's about being good at something or natural ability. I think it's about training. We go to school, we study and we study and we study this subject, and we think we're never going to get it, and we keep on studying, and then suddenly just one day we get it. It's like the light turned on. And we go, oh yeah, the light turned on. Yet we never ask ourselves, what is that? What is that light turning on? What is that really about? I'm going to give you an idea of what I think might be part of what this is about. I think it's about training. I think it's about we study and we study and we study. And each time that we study, we open up more of these pathways in our brain until finally the pathway has opened up enough that it opens to the answer. It opens to that next space in our brain where that answer is. And that's the light going on. I think your mind might be like this, kind of like this computer-like thing. And the pathways that you've been using are the pathways that are open. And so when you come to a problem in those pathways, it's easier because, the road's kind of clear and you can run down that road further. But if you go towards something that you haven't worked on at all yet, it might be really difficult because that road, it has nothing there yet. And you actually have to cut a road into the wilderness in order for those pathways to start opening. So the more you exercise a path, the more open it is, the easier it is to follow those trains of thought. The less you use that pathway, it's really difficult to try and figure out pathways that you don't use. And one of the things you can think about is think of how many kids go into a similar profession as their parents. And part of that is because from the time that they're a baby, you as their parent are training them in what you know, in your beliefs, your attitudes, your experiences, and all of that is about what you know. So if you're a mechanic, you're going to teach your child how to fix cars or fix things because you're mechanical. You have really good skill sets in that. And if you're an author, you're going to help your child think about writing and how to write beautiful and creative ways and encourage that in them because you're really good at that and you know how to teach that. So if we think about children and how many children go into similar pathways as their parents, we start to understand that maybe they do that because they're actually trained in those pathways from the day that they're born. The synapses, the neurons, everything that you need to problem solve in whatever area it is, your parents have been training you on those since the day you're born. And that could be to be a farmer or to be a lawyer or to be an engineer or to be a salesperson. You're getting trained those skill sets from the day that you're born. And so those synapses, those pathways, those neurons, they're well exercised. That muscle has been exercised over and over and over again. But there's going to be things that you haven't exercised at all because your parents can't do everything. And then it comes to the thing, what if you want to do a different profession than your parents? Well, then we have education, right? Because hopefully you're going to be able to find mentors and people who can teach you those skills that you need to learn, that muscle memory that you need to learn for the skill set that you want to do. And all of that is really physical. We learn to use our mind to solve physical problems, those problems we can write down on paper, those problems that we can turn a wrench, those kind of problems. But you know what we don't teach our mind to do? We don't teach ourselves how to control our mind. So we don't teach ourselves how to acknowledge nonverbal cues, how to read someone's aura, how to read someone's intent. And you might be saying, well, that's not really true. Children who grow up in trauma, like alcoholism, they're really good at reading the room. Well, true. Yet that's not really what we're looking for. We're not looking for the ability to read the room when our self-preservation or our physical body is threatened, because in that situation, we are in a situation of stress. Those kind of trauma situations create stress in the body. There's a really good book by Hans Sell, The Stress of Life. And just in case you don't want to read the book, let me give you a synopsis. Basically, what it says is stress tears your body apart. And one of the key places that it loves to attack is your digestion. Here's an interesting statistic. In the United States, every year, we spend $14 billion on protein pump inhibitors, PPIs, for digestive upset, heartburn. And you know these because you can get them over the counter, and their names are going to be Nexium, Prevacid, Prilosec. There's a lot of things going on with our digestion. And if this was Chinese medicine, they would say, yeah, your food choices, your lifestyle, that all plays a part in this. Yet your emotions probably even play more a part of this than all those toxic food choices that we've been eating our whole life. And you can even feel that at work, right? You might be in a meeting with someone you don't like, and you're spending all your time ignoring them and trying not to let their voice grate on your nerves. And by the time you get out of that meeting, you're just exhausted. Yet, you know what? It's even harder when it happens at home with your interpersonal relationships because you're around them all the time in a much more intimate way than you are with your people at work. So, if there's things that are going on that are grating on your nerves, they have a tendency to happen over and over and over again until they become a trigger. I kind of think of it like drinking a quart of soda a day. At some point in time, you're going to get diabetes. So these emotions that aggravate you, it's like drinking a quart of soda a day. At some point in time, they're going to cause these digestive problems that are going to be really hard to get over. Why did we get here in the first place? Why did we get all those digestive issues? Oh, and that plugged up navel chakra. Gaslighting, right? Okay, so not only has our educational system spent zero time on helping us guard, support, and understand our intuition, it spent all its time telling us that our intuition is wrong and false. Think about if you try to call someone out in your family for doing something that you perceive is gaslighting, what's the first thing they're going to say to you? No, I didn't. I'm not doing that. You're crazy. You need to mind your own business. Their first sentence is not going to be, hey, help me understand why you think that. But, it's not just our family, right? There's this institutionalized socialization that's happening around us every day. And, it's great if you're in the position of authority. So let's call the position of authority the club. So it's great if you're in the club. But if you're not in the club, then this institutionalized socialization, it's not quite as fun because you're going to have all these boundaries. And these boundaries are about putting limits on you. It's about limiting what you're able to do. So if you're not in the club, not as fun. If we look at the situation from abuse and trauma, well, then it makes more sense. It's much more obvious because we know that people succumb to chronic abuse. And that's what I kind of think happened to our mind. First, our educational system spent zero time helping us learn how to control our mind. And if you've been in an abusive situation, you might have been told it's about forgiveness and not getting angry. Well, it's not that at all. It's perfectly reasonable to be angry, and you might not necessarily have to forgive them. Yet there might be some point in time where you actually realize that whatever happened, it was painful, but it has absolutely nothing to do with your real life at this moment. And then, of course, there's the institutionalized socialization where society actually reinforces some of these negative behaviors and beliefs that we've picked up from our family of origin. And it can even take it one step further, increasing the amount of negative reinforcement and negative thinking. If you've been in that situation, you know that all that negativity, it's personal. Inside of yourself, you feel that it's not about the situation, it's about you. Yet, if you were in this situation with a totally different group of people, this negative reinforcement probably never would have happened. If you were in this situation with the same group of people and the same negative reinforcement, but you had learned to control your mind, then none of this negative reinforcement would have happened because you would have learned to read nonverbal cues and you would be able to see that this wasn't about you. This was about the world that they had created. They were just asking you to please, could you participate and perpetuate this horrible universe that I've created? Would love you to be a part of my horrible world, right? in order to get there, we actually have to come face to face with those lessons, those crazy lessons that we learned of hurt, betrayal, humiliation, abuse, whatever those lessons were that you are telling yourself that you use to create your world. And, sometimes those lessons, they're not that easy to find. One of the first steps is meditation. Meditation is like this great way to introduce you to yourself. And if you're one of those people who doesn't like to be alone, doesn't like to be alone with their own thoughts, well, sometimes it's not just you who doesn't like being alone with their thoughts, especially when we're coming face to face with whatever's going on inside of us. Because the true fear is, what if this is true? What if I am that horrible person? And I can tell you that you're not. I can tell you 100% it's not true. Yet the only way you're going to figure that out is if you're brave enough to come face to face with the fear of finding out you're a horrible person. Because when you come face to face with whatever that hurt, that humiliation, that betrayal, that abuse, whatever that was, and you actually pull it up and you can actually see it in the light of day, then you can finally understand it and you can let it go. Here's my thoughts. If you're meditating, then keep on going. And if you haven't started meditating yet, then maybe this might be a reason to meditate. Okay, until next time, I will catch you on the other side.